David Edward Most, an American serial killer, targeted male adolescents between the ages of 13 and 19 for his attacks. He was responsible for killing people in both Germany and the United States. David Edward Most was born in 1954 in Connellsville, Pennsylvania. George and Eva Most were chosen to be his parents' names. Most is an Old Amish surname. Most's father abandoned the family when he was 7 years old, following the breakup of his marriage. Neither of Most's grandfathers could see him reach his 12th birthday. A marginal level of functioning was also assigned to her. He was an American serial killer who, throughout his criminal career, was responsible for the deaths of 5 people. In total, he was responsible for the deaths of 10 people, which led to his capture and arrest on December 10, 2003. His paternal grandparents inspired his parents to give him their family name. Most's parents divorced when he was 7 years old, leaving him in the custody of his mother, who had been diagnosed as psychotic. A year after his separation from Most's mother, Most's father took his own life. When he was only 9 years old, he was committed to a psychiatric institution at the request of his mother. His mother accused him of attempting to kill his younger brother by first setting fire to the bed he was sleeping in and then trying to drown him. She said he did this so she could blame him for his son's actions. Even though his mother was reportedly disturbed, psychotic, needy, and narcissistic. How Most's case was handled at the facility gave the impression that his mother had dumped him there. He had a history of violent behavior from a young age. When he was younger, it was known that he had choked 2 of his friends for no apparent reason. However, he did not end up killing either of them. He had a history of violent behavior from a young age. Recent events have brought to mind Most's brother, who witnessed him use a baseball bat to put an animal to sleep and then call the act fun. Although his brother remembered Most being sexually abused as a child, Most continued to deny it. Even though Most was a model patient in the hospital, he was miserable because his mother did not visit him at all during his stay. When he was 13 years old, he moved into a home for troubled youths for children after he had finally gotten away from his abusive family. At that location, he experienced unwelcome sexual advances made by another boy. In the early years of his adult life, Most began working in the construction industry alongside his uncle in Wrightsville, Georgia. However, because he was responsible for an accident involving a company truck, he was terminated in the end. After losing his job, he made an effort to move back in with his mother, but while he was on the way there, he was threatened with a knife. He ultimately decided not to move back in with his mother. Because of this, his mother took him to meet with an army recruiter. When Most turned 18, he enlisted in the military to begin his service. In the year 1972, after he had completed his basic training at Fort Lewis and advanced individual training at Fort Ord, he was sent to a post in Frankfurt, Germany. The fact that he was a service member who worked as a cook does not change the fact that he was an able service member, according to all accounts. This happened to be the case. In 1974, he was stationed in Germany when he murdered a boy named James McClister, who was 13 years old and the child of American expatriates. However, in his defense, he claimed that the boy died in an accident while riding on a moped that he had stolen, which led to his conviction for manslaughter and robbery in a court-martial. This was despite the court-martial being held in a military setting. He is scheduled to spend a total of 4 years in confinement at Fort Leavenworth Military Prison to fulfill the terms of his sentence. Even though Most had stated that he wished to spend the rest of his life behind bars and not be eligible for parole, he was eventually let out of jail in 1977. In the year 1979, Most stabbed a friend in the back while the friend was sleeping in his apartment in Chicago. Most's attack occurred while the friend was asleep. He was arrested and charged with attempting to murder another individual. In 1981, Most decided to find the young boy, who was then 13 years old, who had sexually assaulted him while he was staying home for children and then killed him. Most carried out this plan. Ultimately, he was forced to resort to murdering Donald Jones, who was only 15 years old, because he could not find the child. Jones could not survive after he drowned in a quarry in Elgin. In the same year, Most stabbed a young man in Texas, was arrested for the crime, and was sentenced to 5 years in prison for causing bodily injury to a child. In 1982, while Most was serving time for the murder of Jones in prison in Texas, he was extradited to Illinois to face charges related to the crime. A law enforcement officer working for the Cook County Sheriff's Office penned the words, "bad guy." The Gacy type on the cover sheet of the extradition documents forwarded to the state of Texas. After it was determined that he did not possess the mental capacity required for the trial to continue, he was committed to a mental health facility for observation. In the end, after all those hospitalizations and approximately 10 years spent in jail awaiting trial, Most pleaded guilty in 1994 and was sentenced to 35 years in prison for his crime. He had been in jail for approximately 10 years before his trial. He was held captive for a total of 12 years. On the other hand, he was given credit for the 12 years he was held, as well as time off for good behavior. As a result, he served 17 years in total, and he was released in 1999. Following this conviction, the Office of the State's Attorney for Cook County sent a fact sheet to the Illinois Department of Corrections, which included the following statement: "This inmate is most likely the most dangerous inmate you will house." Although Most satisfied the requirements set forth by the law for an early release, the prosecutor argued that he should continue to serve his sentence behind bars. Because he had expressed his desire to continue to be held under supervision, he decided to write a letter requesting that he be allowed to do so. His letter received no response from the recipient. Most made an additional attempt at murder in the year 2001 when he struck a friend or acquaintance in the back of the head with a metal pipe. However, he was not prosecuted for the crime because, despite reporting the incident to the police, the friend or acquaintance did not wish to pursue legal action against Most. This is why he was never charged with the crime. On December 12, 2003, Most was taken into custody and charged with the murder of James Regani, who was only 16 years old at the time of the incident. The skeleton of Regani was found in the basement of Most's house in Hammond, Indiana, encased in concrete. The home was located in the United States. After some time, he was charged with the murders of Michael Dennis, who was 13, and Nick James, who was 19, both of whose bodies had also been encased in concrete and wrapped in plastic before their deaths. In November 2005, he entered a guilty plea for each of the 3 murders. As a direct consequence of that plea, he was handed 3 consecutive sentences of life in prison without the possibility of parole. Most committed suicide by hanging himself in his jail cell in January 2006, roughly a month after he was sentenced to his sentence. Workers at the correctional facility discovered a note written by the inmate in his cell in which he admitted responsibility for all 5 homicides. In addition, he extended his condolences to the families of those who had been hurt. What do you think of our video? Let me know in the comments section below. If you enjoyed this video and want to hear from me again, hit that subscribe button before you go. Thanks for watching.